In this video, I want to discuss how I set up and use aperture priority mode, also what Canon calls AV mode. AV mode is kind of the halfway point between manual mode and program mode. You're allowed to adjust two settings, aperture and ISO. The camera takes care of the speed. AV mode or aperture priority mode is one of my most favorite modes to use. It allows me to be able to shoot on the fly without having to think too much about my settings in my camera. However, there are certain things you need to make sure you set correctly in the beginning before you use AV mode. So you don't wind up in situations that you don't understand why you're getting blurry photos because your camera's bringing your speed down too low. The first thing I do when I'm setting up AV mode is I will set the ISO to automatic. The reason for this is one of my first family shoots that I had done, I was using aperture priority mode and I had the ISO set at 100. It was late afternoon and the sun was going down and the exposure was coming down in the scene. And unfortunately, my ISO, I kind of forgot about it to raise it. And so my camera was adjusting the speed down to be able to get the exposure up within the camera. So my photos ended up being blurry because of the fact that my speed was too low. I wasn't at that 1/125th of a minimum. Some of the shots were like at 130 and I was shooting with a 50mm lens. So that really taught me a lesson and really made me look deeper into setting up AV mode correctly. So setting your ISO to automatic is the first thing I do. Canon added a new feature to its later cameras that started with the 70D and not found in the 60D. And this setting is called ISO speed settings. And in this tab, you find what's called your minimum shutter speed. And basically, you have the choice to set what your minimum shutter speed would be before you want the ISO to be raised. So the beauty of this is if you're in a situation and the exposure is coming down, it's getting darker, and you don't want to fall below a minimum speed. Like for me, it would be 1/125th for the typical lenses I'm using. Once you get to that minimum, your camera will start to raise the ISO then up to its maximum setting that you have for ISO. So let's say you're in a situation, it's getting dark, the speed's dropping down, it gets to the 1/125th, I was at 100 ISO, now it bumps up to 200, 400, 800, 1600 as things get darker, so that way I'm still able to get the correct exposure. Once you get to your max, then the speed starts to drop below your minimum, but you should really call it quits at that point for taking any more photos for that evening. That pretty much sums up how I set up and use AV mode. Take this information and practice. Apply it to your photography. And thank you for watching this video. As always, happy shooting.